welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast. So, quickly, our sponsors. We are proudly sponsored by Yugoku caps. You've seen me wearing them on the podcast. You can get the discount codes from me. Send me a message. I'll send them to you. They're floating around. We're also sponsored by Phoenix head torches. Same thing goes. If you're after a discount code, just get in touch. There are there on the web, but if you want them personally from me, I will send them to you. And also, finally, we are proudly sponsored by Home Trails. So Home Trails is my YouTube series interviewing famous trail runners from hopefully around the world at some point. In the UK at the moment, where we interview them on the trail in the home trails. You understand what it is, don't you? You've listened to the show. That's hopefully turning into a bit of a brand, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Okay, on with the actual show. Okay, folks, welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast. Just quickly before we interview Charlotte, just sort of give you a bit of background. We'll obviously go into it in the interview, but so Charlotte, we spoke to Charlotte via voice note on the last episode. So she gave us her views on UTMB Mallorca being cancelled because she was there for the race. So we'll obviously talk about that, but we'll also talk about what she's done over the last year since we spoke. When we first spoke to her, it was Centurion's North Downs Way 100 that she won last year. Since then, she's had a bit of trouble with racing, a bit of bad luck, shall we say, with injuries and things being cancelled. But she's reinvigorated herself with this FKT around the Isle of Wight. So, looking forward to catching up with Charlotte, who is a returning guest. So, I'll let her into the Zoom meeting shortly. Okay, we are recording again. So, welcome to returning guest Charlotte Fisher.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no problem. So I was looking back at when we last spoke, and it was over a year ago, wasn't it? It was
Yeah,
it was after your win at Centurion North Downs Way, wasn't it?
yeah, life's only gone down since the podcast.
No, don't say that.
Oh, I'm joking.
Yeah, I saw your post, and basically you've had a bit of like bad luck, haven't you, with races and everything since. So
Yeah.
I was having a look at that post that you'd put on about. So basically, so since then, since that like amazing start to your ultra running career of like like sliding in and like winning your first 100 miler,
Yeah.
since you had to pull out of Trans Gran Canaria because of a bad knee. Then
hmm
you were really poorly, weren't you, leading up to Ultra Trail Snowdonia?
Yeah, so the training went really well for Ultra Snowdonia. And then literally the day I was due to go on taper, I got incredibly ill, like the illest I've ever been in my life. So yeah, not ideal.
But you actually completed that race, didn't you?
I did, but 47 hours, one of 8 women to complete it. That was a tough couple of
Yeah.
days.
That race is a tough day at the office at the best of times, let
It
alone
is.
when you
And
like.
I think I'll be the only female who's completed it, who's doing it again, because I'm doing it to try and do it some justice again in May.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had that, and then obviously we've already heard from you via voice notes in the last
Yeah.
episode. For you, UTMB Mallorca was cancelled, wasn't it, a few weeks ago?
Yeah. And I felt like finally the stars had aligned. I was the fittest I've ever been. I'd been out there to recce. I couldn't be more prepared. I was really excited. I didn't even really have any nerves. I was just really excited to go out and race this time. And yeah, cancelled. And obviously to start with, my race wasn't cancelled. They cut it down to 100k, and I was really disappointed with that. But I just thought, do you know what? I'm happy to still be running. And then to have that cancelled as well, it's just like, oh,
Oh, it's annoying, isn't it?
it's
Yeah.
so frustrating, so frustrating.
It's when you've trained for something really hard and you feel like you go into a race feeling, I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
Feeling, haven't you, that something good is going to happen. When I've had good races, when I've done well in them. I've always kind of known before. I've never gone into a race thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do rubbish." I've gone into it. The ones I've done well at, I've gone into it thinking, I'm ready for this, and this is
Yeah, I couldn't be more prepared for it, and I truly felt the fittest I've, ever been. And yeah, it's just you can't make these things up, can you? There's no way did I think 2 weeks before that weather would be cancelling the race. I just hadn't even considered it. Yes, for Ultra Trail Snowdonia, I was checking the weather forecast continuously, thinking, a Welsh storm might come in and ruin my race. But for the Mallorca race, I didn't even consider.
no, you don't, do you?
No,
I think what we were saying in that podcast, the last when I spoke with Robin, where we did discuss the race and stuff. I was saying when you think of Mallorca, you don't think of bad weather, do you? Even like this time,
no.
you would think you would think, oh, it might be a bit cloudy, but you don't think about like the horrific storms that they've had, do you?
Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I took it on in November. I thought it'd be a bit colder and a bit miserable and kind of an easier temperature to run in. But actually, the daytimes are still like 20 to 25 degrees. And
Right.
then obviously there's this risk of these huge storms.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? 'Cause we were sort of saying, you don't really think of it being like, anything connected with Spain as being like having bad weather and and I was saying to Robin, my brother-in-law, my sister, they've got a house sat in out in Spain, and he was saying that they're not prepared for that kind of weather. They don't
No,
have the infrastructure there for like flash floods. They get rain, but it just, they've got like minimal drainage and stuff, but this just sort of overwhelmed, whole towns, and like rivers were flowing down streets, and houses look like the roofs look like waterfalls and stuff. So I think it
yeah.
just one of those things, isn't it? It's just annoying, isn't it, when it's your race and that you've prepared for so long.
Yeah, a lot of financial commitment went into that as well. Just with obviously like paying for Charlie to come out with me on the recce and then to support me, and then we sort of had a holiday. It was like I think I had one rest sort of day where we had like a proper holiday, and then the other days were mostly me running and a bit of fun as well. But obviously, so I'd already done that for a week, and then we went back out there for the race. So yeah, big financial commitment as well.
Yes, it's a good job Charlie got that free head torch onto it.
Yeah, I know. He's still buzzing with that. Yet to come out though for a run in the darkness with it.
Is it not? Oh
No,
no.
not yet, not
I
yet.
thought you would have nicked it off him.
Oh, I have to. I have to.
Amazing. So obviously it's not all like the depressing and disaster, is it? Because you've basically like flipped it, haven't you? And you've brought produced something positive out of it. So what have you like achieved since you got back from that disappointing trip?
So basically, I just knew I had to do something. So the second the race was cancelled, Charlie went back to sleep because it was 4 a.m. I was getting up ready for the 6 a.m. start. Charlie went back to sleep, and I was just there on my laptop typing in other races around Europe or seeing if there's anywhere I could fly to. And the problem is with a race like this, your taper is so specific. So I'd already been on a 2 week taper. It was go time basically that weekend or within the next week. And anything which was kind of on the radar, it didn't work in. And there's nowhere I could have flown to. I think one of the other UTMB events was in Hong Kong or something. It just wasn't going to happen. So I thought, what about the fastest known time around the Isle of Wight? Now I had looked at this. Someone that I ran with in Ultra Trail Snowdonia had said, look, this you could probably get this. But it was just a bit of admin to, plan. So it was just kind of in the back of my mind for one day. And I decided 4 a.m. that Saturday that that one day would be next Saturday. So Charlie kind of woke up and I'd already announced to everybody that's how I was spending the following Saturday. Yeah, running around the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, amazing. So I know that route well because I've done that route twice. That was weirdly, it was like one of the things that sort of stood out to me when I first started ultra running. So I'm trying to think the years that I did it. So I ended up going back like 2 years on the trot to do the official race.
Yeah, the Ultra Challenges one.
Yeah, that one. So I think that was my first. I think that may have been my first, like over 100K. Because what is it? Is it about 66? Is it or something?
So when I did the Island Ultra Challenge, it didn't include that floating bridge. So sorry about that. Although I don't have the dogs that I'm looking after, I do have four cats, so that's the noisest today. I
Yeah.
compromise for my own cats rather than other people's dogs today. um, so yeah, so the Ultra Challenge is 106 kilometers, but the coastal path for the fastest known time is 115 kilometers. I think it's 71 miles.
Yeah.
Which I think your Ultra Challenge would have originally mimicked more of the coastal path, whereas the
Yeah.
one that I did, they kind of they changed the route a little bit to take out the chain ferry.
So I definitely went on the chain ferry both years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. So
logistically that chain ferry just is never running. So I think for the race organisers, they were just like, right, let's do a diversion on that bit.
yeah, it's quite bizarre actually because I'd never come across that in a race before. Well, I suppose actually back then it was like the beginning of my ultra sort of racing career anyway. So I probably just thought, oh, this is obviously just part and parcel of
Yeah.
ultra. Get on a ferry in the middle of the night and go through. So I think yeah. So I'm just trying to think now how long it took me. I think it must have taken me about 14 hours,
Yeah,
something.
so the record was, I think it was 14 and a half I had to beat.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is you not like 2 hours off it, something then?
Yeah, it was like 11 hours 40 something, I want to say. I
Yeah.
to be honest, I was going for the overall time, the male time originally. But the first 30 kilometers, it was a mess for me. I was really unwell. I don't know if it was I took one of those more 10 bicarb systems
Mm.
and I didn't want to ever risk taking one prior to a race, but I wanted to take one when doing like a big ultra run. So I thought, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to recce trying one of these bicarb systems. I did not agree. It did not agree with me.
Oh, that's
I,
interesting.
I was really, I just, I don't know. It could have been anything, but I'm thinking it probably was that. I just had such an upset stomach, and yeah, it tasted like salt water the whole time as well. I don't know.
What
Um,
explain how that works then? Because that's like I was listening to. I'd not quite realised that is it like a weird system where you put like do you
yeah,
put
it's weird.
balls
It's like
in?
imagine paper mâché with loads of little plastic balls in, and then it tastes kind of salty. It Sorry about the cats.
Yeah,
I'm
don't
just
worry
gonna
about
shut
that.
the door before we continue.
Well, I see two cats. We'll just entertain ourselves during the
Of
pause.
course, there's always animal issues on any podcast that I do.
Don't worry. We're
Right.
we're used to it on this podcast. Yeah. So my cats aren't. They're downstairs, so we're safe from
It's
them.
because I just bought them a new toy off of Amazon and they're fighting over it and it's been turned off. So they've just, yeah.
Well,
Um,
normally cats like try and jump on your laptop, don't they? That's like a thing.
well, I also thought that would be a possibility, but the two dogs that I'm currently looking after love to bark, love it. So that's why I figured I'd pop back home quickly to do this.
Safer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But the bicep system, I would say up there with one of the most disgusting things I've ever had. And then just completely repeated on me. And I don't know if it was that, but my heart rate was really elevated as well. It was a lot higher than it should have been. And yeah, I just did not feel well for the first 35K. And I lost a lot of time during that section. Then I just said to myself, look, don't go for the overall time. Just I was trying to go roughly for 10K an hour. So I had to do about 11K, I think, an hour to get the mail time. I
Mm.
think it was 10 hours. I think it was an hour faster than I did it in, which would make about it makes sense. But
About 10 hours is it for the male record?
I think 10 hours 49 or something. So about an hour faster than I'd done it in.
Oh, that's good then, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I just kind of accepted that I think I'd lost half an hour in the first quarter, and I just realised I can't really make that up now. The
Mm.
rest of it did go well, um, but yeah. So I don't know.
Don't worry. What's the name of that cat?
This one is called Randy, and funny enough, actually, I got him. He's called Randy because I got him on the way back from one of my Welsh training trips for Snowdonia. But
Lovely
hopefully
looking
he
cat.
hopefully he'll just sit there nicely.
Lovely cat. Awesome. Um, yeah. So, yeah, Randy's put me off now.
What a name!
Great name. So had you sort of been eyeing that FKT up for a long time, or is it something that you just? I know you sort
So
of decided quite quickly to do it, but have you been sort of planning that for a long time?
no, my friend Nick mentioned it to me this summer, and said, "Why don't you go for this?" Because I couldn't fit a race in over the summer, um, between Mallorca and between Mallorca and Ultra Snowdonia. I really wanted to do a race in between, and because of work commitments, it just wasn't going to work. So that's why I was going to do. I considered it, and I just thought it's too soon from when I did the Island Ultra Challenge as well. It just seemed like I'd be repeating myself a bit. Um, so I had looked at it, but it wasn't something that I definitely didn't think I'd be doing it this year. And I just decided as soon as Mallorca was cancelled and I knew there was no other races I could jump on, I just thought I'd raised 1.3K for an animal charity on the Isle of Wight. So I just knew I had to do something to kind of honour the training as well, but honour the fundraiser. Um, I I didn't even look at the weather forecast, so I'm really glad that it was actually quite a nice calm day. Um, because for November can be a bit hit and miss. And if I'd have planned it, I would have definitely done it in a June when there's a lot more daylight hours. I had to start at the first couple hours in the dark and I finished in the dark. Um, but all things considered, it went quite well. And obviously, I would have loved to have recce'd areas to have been able to have. There's a lot of coastal erosion, so it's not as straightforward as just following
Yeah.
a specific path. There's a lot of closures. And with these routes, you have to kind of take photos of the diversions and make sure it's sent off to be approved after and stuff like that. So I would have
Yeah.
liked to have recce'd the closures because I was going into it a bit blind. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, it is my home island and I do a lot of dog walking around. So I do kind of know um, the areas and what was going on with the closures. And I posted in a running group, and a few people said, "Oh, do you realise this road's shut at the moment? The tree's down, and blah blah blah, and this is the diverted route." And someone had done it in July, so not too much erosion had happened since July. So I was able to kind of use his GPX and just kind of make a few amendments with the road closures and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like an ever-changing coastline, isn't it? That because I know
Yeah.
when I did it, it from one year to the next, there was, like the second year I did it, there was a path that was completely different because literally the coastal path wasn't there anymore. It had just been washed away by the sea.
I ran along a path and then it just drops to a ravine and there's no path left. There's just a fence. So I was
Yeah.
like, right, I guess I'm climbing over the fence and going through the field because there's no more path left.
That sounds very similar to the bit. And was that the bit that was sort of coming around towards or after the Needles? Is it on that?
Yeah, so I guess you'd have been coming the other way, but yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when I did it both years, so I think it changed direction. So one year it was one way and obviously the opposite way round the next.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no mean feat, is it, that route? It's got a bit of everything, hasn't it? So there's like bits of road, bits of grass, bits of trail, bits of like so I remember
Yeah.
like, there's one bit that was like really, really narrow trail with like really nasty, like thorny stuff all around you.
Yeah, I was covered in blood actually from that section because it's completely overgrown. Where a lot of these coastal paths are closed, they obviously just say that to deter you, but you can go through them. They're not groomed, so you are just going through big prickly bushes and yeah, yeah, there was a lot of that. And for the last section, Charlie was covering some work for me. So obviously he would have been crewing me, but he crewed to 11 and covered work. So I didn't have anyone to kind of bring me, I didn't plan enough basic. I had people that came out and helped me and bring me water, but I should have planned a change of shoes and things like that. And the last section, I'd say about 30K was road and I was in trail shoes. So my knees by the end really, really suffered. I was in the wrong shoes and I really felt that. And the next day, my kneecaps were really swollen and I've not had that before. And I do think that is a huge amount of road running in trail shoes.
Yeah,
rookie error.
yeah. I wouldn't.
Again, had I
Yeah,
planned better, that would have been something I did, but
yeah.
it really was a bit of a winging it kind of day.
It's all that section that's literally all just along the seafront, isn't it? Where it's all
Seafront,
flat,
yeah.
but it's like concrete and tarmac, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The only kind of respite is Culver Down, where you go up, which is like the steep bit in that area. And then other than that, it was just all road.
Yeah.
And yeah, big mistake not have even usually I'd wear for the first section I'd had Hoka challenges on, which are kind of like road and trail.
Mm,
But those got really wet and muddy. So whilst Charlie was still there, I changed into the Hoka Tecton Freeze, which are really responsive. And for that coastal path that I run on, they're my favourite shoes. But I just had forgotten that, hang on, you go straight to a really massive road section for the end part. I thought they'd be all right, but I think that's just it's too much road to do in trail shoes.
yeah. What are they like? Because I've got a pair of the Hoka Rocket which are the road carbon shoes.
Yeah,
I absolutely love them. Are they?
yeah.
What are the Tectons like? Are they similar? I don't know if you know what they
Y-
if they feel similar to the road
They're
versions.
not as the rockets, I'd say are just they are super shoes. I put those rockets on and I'm the fastest I've ever been in my life. I got a bit carried away when I first got those and just wanted to run every day in those ones because I'm so fast in them. They're not because they're trail shoes, they're not quite like that. But I just find they've got that built-in skater, like the sock. And I just feel they're just so comfortable. They're not as squishy and bouncy as the Rockets, but I lived in them all summer. I got them for this race, but obviously I wanted to. I've gone through one pair now at mileage and got another pair, but I just wanted to practice them in Mallorca, and I used them to start with on the Isle of Wight, and I love them, absolutely love them. But yeah, not as ideal as the challenges over multi-terrain. That's the only
Yeah.
thing. But obviously in Mallorca there wasn't going to be much road sections at all. It was mostly mountain, and I found they were perfect out there for that.
Yeah, yeah, there would be, wouldn't there? Yeah, I had a pair of speed goats this year, and I'd never had any speed goats before. But somebody was saying how they'd changed the design of them, and this year they were a lot firmer than they used to be. So, I'd like been doing a lot of my road running in like either some ultras that I've got zero drops or my rockets for like speed work and stuff. And I
Yeah.
like you, I love those Hoka rockets that
Yeah,
feel,
they're so good.
feel like a rocket, don't you? Them?
Yeah, literally.
But it's
Because obviously, as an ultra runner, we do so much slow running, don't we? So every now and then, I like to get those little rockets out and just remind people on Strava I can if I want to, but a bit faster. But yeah, I definitely when I first got them got carried away because I was like, wow.
yeah, you feel invincible, don't you? Mm.
Yeah, the trail versions, yeah, not quite. I mean, I definitely maybe I did get faster than them to be honest, but I think that was just the progression of like my training block. But I can't rate them enough, and they drain really quick and dry out really quick. I think that's another really good factor about them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I love the rocket so much that I even looked at like considered buying some like soles, like some grippy trail soles off gluing them on the bottom of them.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, what's your deal then with her? Are you supported by Hoka?
No, it's a weird one. The PR guy, actually, I don't think he's PR. There's a runner on the Isle of Wight called Josh Wade. He used to do a lot of like half marathons, really, really fast. I think he does like 1 hour 10 or something for a half marathon, really fast guy. He
Mm.
works for Hoka and it's just a word of mouth that I'd got into running. It was after I'd run the North End Way, and he reached out from Hoka and said, "Do you want some shoes?" And he sent me a bunch of shoes, including the previous Tectons and the Rockets,
Mm.
and it was the best day ever. But I haven't, begged for any shoes since. Just kind of, it's one of those things I've just buy myself them. But yeah, I was hoping, maybe a big break at Mallorca,
Yeah,
kind of
no.
like and could be picked up by someone like that. But I guess I'll just have to keep on the grind and buy my own shoes now.
It's like it's a bit gutting for you, isn't it? Because this your story should be different, shouldn't it? It should be that you've you come into the sport and you win such a big race like the North Downs Way and stuff, and then it should have been like just
a
ticking
bit of
off.
a bit of a progression,
Yeah.
yeah. Instead, it's just been like a stalemate. I mean, obviously, Ultra Snowdonia, I finished it, and I know there's a lot of people that that's their race that they just can't get finished. So I'm still grateful, obviously, that I got that done. But I just know that wasn't me racing it. I couldn't physically race that race the way I was. Um, so that's why I'm heading back there to do it
Yeah,
again.
that course has defeated many a really experienced ultra runner, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. What are you, where's your head now then? So you've obviously come off the back of this, like confidence booster of getting the FKT and stuff. So
Yeah.
what are you sort of doing now? Are you sort of calming down for the rest of the year and then working up to that in May?
No, I'm doing Trans Gran Canaria, so I'm in the Groundhog Day. I'm basically repeating the year because I've got to do Trans Gran Canaria because obviously I was injured for it. I'm going back to Ultra Snowdonia because I didn't do it justice, and then I don't know if they're going to put Mallorca back on because obviously you've seen now that the 100K has been announced by the previous organisers. So I saw today that the Swedish UTMB, which is run on the same weekend, has been released. You know, the one Emma Stewart ran. So
Mm.
that's been released already, the dates, whereas Mallorca, there's no. So whether it goes ahead or not, but obviously I'd like to well, not redo it. I'd like to actually have a go at that as well. But other than those, I've also got Lakeland 100. I got the ballot
Nice.
sandwiched in between in July. So it is quite a lot of back-to-back racing, really. But I think, yeah, kind of feels a bit samey because that's kind of how my year should have been this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. But yeah, I can see the logic in it though, because it's almost like you just like,
Unfinished business,
just,
yeah.
yeah, just need to redo that year just to get.
Yeah. And I don't know if you listened to the audio in the when I did the FKT kind of video that I just made. The audio is really fitting. It's basically saying you can do all this training for a race and something happens, but
Yeah.
it doesn't take away the fact that you've done all the training. And I'm in a million times different situation than I was even when we spoke last after the North Down Way. So I've put the hard work in. It's just I haven't got it on paper yet to show anyone. It's just really frustrating. I mean, I ran a strong run for the FKT, but I could have ran it stronger. Obviously, it's not a race, and I didn't have aid stations, and I was just kind of winging it. And I had to have navigation up the whole time, which slows you down as well if you're following a flag. And I ran that quite a strong reserved pace. I wasn't buggered at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? I was all right the next day, and my recovery was for that was compared to when I did the Island Ultra. I was destroyed for weeks after that, whereas I bounced back by the Monday after doing the FKT and was like, oh, I'm all right again.
Mm.
So I just feel like doing that also gave myself a bit of confidence as well because Ultra Trail Snowdonia, it's not really a run, is it? So it's hard to know how you're running when you're not. And
Mm.
and and same for Mallorca, that was going to be a similar sort of race. It's very technical, a lot of climbing, and the terrain is not. It's more runnable than Wales, but not massively runnable. I took it on by looking at the cut-offs and thought, oh, this is probably similar to kind of Gran Canaria trails, but it isn't. It is really technical, and I do feel like they would have realised their cut-offs with the 50 and 25K. They had to extend their cut-offs. So obviously those races went ahead. And I
Mm.
knew just from doing that recce, they were going to have to do the same for the 100 miler because their cutoffs were way too tight. They thought as well that the first man was going to get into Palenza, 50K, I think it was, with 3,500 meters of elevation. They thought the first male was doing it in 4 hours, which, if you compare to like Mark Derbyshire or Tom Evans' time for 50K in Snowdonia, that's 6 hours. So I think there was going to be a lot of teething issues with this first year anyway. So yeah, I do think they definitely underestimated how long that race was going to take people because I was running really strong on the recce's and obviously I was stopping to take photos and wasn't going race speed, but adding up all my sections, I think you get 32 hours, and I think adding up all my days, which is fresh legs, I think it was about 28, 29 hours,
Mm.
which obviously is a bit leisurely as well because I'm enjoying the trails, but also every day I'm fresh. So yeah, I do. I did wonder actually, because I was hoping to be like higher end of the pack. What was going to happen with cutting people off?
Mm.
But yeah, I guess we'll never know unless we do know next year if they can put it on again.
Well, I suppose if they're putting on another big race that same weekend, somewhere else. But then I suppose they do that, don't they? They do put on races in different multiple places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it was almost when they put that post on that they were no longer part of UTMB for that race. It kind of felt like it was like them sort of sending a signal that they were kind of done with UTMB a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, but that's the 100K, which is actually about 68K. So that's their Sky race. But I've seen now that they're doing that at the beginning of October. So UTMB might still be
Okay.
going ahead later in the month and still have all their categories and the other races. I'd like to hope that it goes ahead because honestly, I loved the course. I thought it had a bit of everything and um, oh, a stunning place. I love. That's what I mean. I was really excited to run it. I really, really was. Um, so I do hope it goes ahead. But if it doesn't, I've still also had a week of mountain training out in Mallorca, and it's lessons, isn't it? And when we first spoke, I don't even think I knew mountain running existed. I'd just done the North Down Way, and I was so new to everything. And now mountain running is kind of what I want to focus on.
Mm. Yeah. How's your sort of training changed for that then? So are you still with forgot his name?
Matt, no.
Right.
So
Matt Buck. Yeah.
yeah, no, through no fault of Matt. In the summer, I was with him until in the summer, and my workload was just so busy. So I was with him up until Ultra Trail Snowdonia, and after that. But then my workload was just so busy that it didn't it was just an extra stress to have to. If you're paying for a coach, you want to hit it
Yeah.
perfectly. And I said, let's check in September, and then again, I've just been so busy, and it just gets to the point really where everything else was costing me so much money, like flying out these places directly. And it was just a financial commitment where it's more of a luxury having a coach, isn't it? When you kind of know what you should be doing. Um, but what
Feel
I,
like feel like you know enough now, sort of through the experience that you've had through coaching, that you can sort of it's sort of coach be self-coached now. Then
yeah, and also I know how to listen to my body. So I could push myself a bit for like more that week if I could, or I could decide, oh, I think I need to deload sooner than is scheduled, or I would then look at my work and be like, okay, I can get to Wales this weekend to do some training. I'm going to want to take the week before that a bit easier because I want to be able to hit big mileage and, be fresh for it. So it just kind of worked out a bit better for me in that sense. I'll never say never about going back. I think I did say I'd speak to Matt in the new year and work out, whether about like the future races and stuff. But it's just a financial commitment really on top of everything else. And then my life is so busy
mm,
um that I was just getting it's another thing to get stressed about not hitting
yeah.
if you're not doing your sessions exactly perfect.
Mm.
Um
If you don't mind me saying this, I know that you're sort of quite vocal about your ADHD and stuff.
yeah.
I think that that also has a bearing on it as well because I know my lovely wife who has got ADHD. She she struggles with like being not forced into doing things, but she has resistance against having.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's really weird because I did feel once the pressure was off of that strict routine, I found it more enjoyable and I was able to self-motivate a bit better. So yeah, it did help. And it was more about I knew the fundamentals and the kind of mileage I wanted to hit, but I could be more flexible in the week to do with my work schedule to fit in like a bit of a longer run maybe earlier on or then necessarily have to be at the weekend or it just gave me a bit of flexibility that I could definitely have had with Matt, but it would have then required more communication, which is more time. And when you're busy, it's just one of those things. Yeah. And to be honest, over summer, I just kind of wanted to hit. I've been on a training plan for so long. I just kind of wanted to hit 100K weeks just out of the enjoyment and the love of running for a bit before then September knuckling down and then training for Mallorca, which was meant to be 1st of November, being on a bit more of a strict training block and a bit of a build. So I just loved this summer, absolutely loved it. Just I joined a few like leisure running groups to like run with some other people and just things I hadn't done before. And I just loved just running for the fun of it. I hadn't actually ever had a chance to do that yet. So yeah, this summer was definitely a bit more about that.
yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because I suppose you've sort of come into the sport, got a coach, trained for races, and you've sort of ploughed yourself into that. You've probably do you feel like you've missed out a little bit on the sort of the love of running that probably. I suppose if you'd not had that success so early on, would you have had more time to sort of enjoy running before you took it more seriously, do you think?
Yeah, potentially. And there was just that pressure of when you've done well to carry it on. And so that just meant that I didn't have any downtime ever really, apart from when I had injuries and stuff. But then in that you couldn't, that's not enjoying running either because you're injured, so you can't run. Um, so yeah, I just had a really, really good summer where I still had I knew Mallorca was coming up, so I was still running 100K weeks and doing a deload week every, I don't know, 5 weeks or something. But I was just, yeah, really, really, really enjoying it. And like I said, there's a local group called Dark Star, and they do trail runs and they meet sometimes in the mornings and the evenings, and just to chat with people and do some new routes and just, yeah, spice things up a bit after it'd been very regimented for me from literally from the beginning. It was last February I first started running, the February before last, and then I'd just been on plan with Matt and had race after race kind of vibe. And yeah, it was just nice to have. I was gutted that there was no race over the summer, but in a way it was nice because I just enjoyed my summer of running and realised that I do love running. It's not just because I'm doing these races. I genuinely do love it, which I just needed reminding. Because there were times when I hated running when I was, in the middle of Wales by myself up a mountain thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah, that is the life of an ultra runner, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being in places in cold and miserable and rain and questioning your life choices.
Oh, yeah.
So how are you going to sort of lay out your training now? Have you for like leading up to Trans Gran Canaria, is that February, is it?
February, yeah. So that's another reason why the window to do the FKT had to basically be last weekend because I'm going out to Gran Canaria on the 7th of December to recce and train, and I didn't want to do anything too strenuous. I want like a month recovery from an ultra before I go to the mountains and train for a week. So that's why I kind of had to get that 115K done early. So now I'm kind of in recovery this month, build back a bit towards the end of the month and start of December. And then, yeah, I go to Gran Canaria for a week to train. It's my birthday trip, but I feel like every trip now is kind of wangled towards running. So yeah, so I did go out for Trans Gran Canaria last year, but where I was coming off the back of an injury, I only did 10Ks and just went out to support, saw Courtney, Zach
Mm.
Miller. Obviously, I went out and saw Josh Wade. He was actually the only friendly athlete that, apart from Courtney, obviously she did smile, but we went and saw, it was like Zach Miller and I can't think of his name. There's a Japanese ultra runner who I think came second in Western States, but he was, they were kind of like the top males, and Josh came by and he was just buzzing. He was so happy. It was such good vibes. um, so yeah, we went out and I had such bad FOMO though, because obviously I was desperate to be racing it. I saw Emma Stewart running as well, went to the finish line when she finished. I was so jealous, but it's just one of those things. So I've recce'd the race in a way because I've seen it going ahead. But I'm going to go out, yeah, December, do the route. Then I'm actually going to Philippines for a couple of weeks, which again, that's over Christmas and the New Year. That's kind of, it's a holiday. I'm seeing some friends out there, but there's mountains and it's good heat training. So I will train out there. I'm not just going to have 3 weeks off. I'll be training out in the Philippines, which I think will spice things up a bit. And in a way, it will be hotter than Gran Canaria will be. So hopefully the climatization will make it, even easier. Then get back on, I think I get back mid-January. So I've got like a bit of training in the UK before then we go out for Trans Gran Canaria. Then I get back and I've already booked in my calendar a few weekends in Wales ahead of Ultra Trail Snowdonia, but I feel like that should just be a kind of continuation of the training for Gran Canaria. Focus just a bit more in the gym again, I need to get my arms stronger again for the poles. um, get my power hike on, get my Stairmaster going and stuff ahead of that. And then I'm excited just to spend a bit of time. I've not been to the Lake District. I know, how bad is that for an ultra runner, but it's like a little bit further even than Snowdonia for me. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to then spend some time in the Lake District this summer and train ahead of doing Lakeland 100. So yeah, that's kind of, my year is just already just literally planned because of
Fine,
work and because of races. I had to be like quite strict. So I just got, that's why Mallorca cancelling throws such a spanner in the works because it's not as easy as just jumping on something else because these races do require time in between. and then careful planning.
Yeah, it's yeah. Yeah, your work and everything sort of is you sort of have to plan quite a bit.
Yeah, for the people that obviously are listening and don't realize, I am a dog walker, but also I do pet sitting, house sitting. So I have contracts where I'm booked at people's houses, so I can't just go off for the weekends and do a race.
Yeah, it's the I suppose that there's pros and cons in that to that kind of lifestyle, isn't there? You
Yeah.
stay in some nice houses and feel like you're on holiday, but you can't leave.
Yeah, like this summer after Ultra Snowdonia, I was so desperate to do another race, and my calendar was just booked up for all the races that I kind of wanted to consider. And it's just one of those things. It's I just had to make peace of it, and then that's why I was so excited that Mallorca got announced. That got announced at the end of May that they were doing that race, and I was like, oh, it's still a fun kind of mountain race this year that I can do, and then yeah, didn't even get to do it.
Oh, gutted. So looking forward then, so if everything sort of goes to plan, Transgran Canaria, Snowdonia, and then the rest of the year,
Mhm.
sort of thought ahead as like for, I know it's probably like thinking very long range, isn't it? But if all those things go to plan and you have the success that you due really after all these years, what are the plans for like 2026? Have you got like big plans for have you thought that far ahead, or are you just so hyper focused on getting things right?
UTMB, I think would be the goal. But I didn't want to go into that too early. And I don't want to go into that without a athlete entry. So I want a podium finish at either over Mallorca or Ultra Snowdonia really to get that entry. I've got the running stones obviously from finishing last year, but I feel like if I am doing UTMB, I want to go in to race it. And I don't want to go into that. I know most people don't have a great UTMB their first attempt anyway. But yeah, I think that would probably be the focus of the following year. There's a few races, there's loads that I like the look of. Even it's just annoying because there's a few that I want to do this year, but obviously when I'm having to repeat, I'm not getting the opportunity. Like I would love to have done the Arc this year,
Mm.
but it's just pushing too many races, and I could do the 50 miler, but I like because when I did it around the Isle of Wight the other day, 115k, it's not quite far enough to. I like the suffering of the 100 milers, and I know that if I went and did the 50 miler when I know there's 100 going on in the event, I just wish I was doing the 100 miler. So I think I will wait, and the following year I would like, yeah, I think Arc of Patrician I'd like to do. I feel like that would really play to my strengths. That's kind of obviously from being on the Isle of Wight, that's basically kind of the sort of trails and conditions that I'm quite used to running on, and kind of like the elevation up and down coastal paths. Um, yeah, UTMB is definitely that's everyone's goal, isn't it? Well, typically it's the cliche. Um, and is it Muet, Madeira Ultra Trail? I like the idea of that one as
Yeah.
well. Because I am really good. My special talent is the Stairmaster, and there's a lot of stairs in that race. Everyone always moans about them, but there's a running joke around people that I know that just I'm really good at the stairs. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'd be quite good at that race.
Yeah, secret weapon, the Stairmaster.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Um, what what sort of plans have you got as far as like if are you trying? I know we sort of spoke about Hoka, giving you some free shoes and stuff. Are you
Yeah.
sort of do you hope that you're gonna get some visible success that will enable you to sort of be able to get sponsors and things like that? Is that
Yeah, I
sort of
mean, I would love that. That's obviously my goal is to be able to do that. I love running so much, and I would never give up, my business because I think I could do both. It's very easy to do both. I wouldn't have to compromise. Perhaps like cut down a bit on the house sitting, but I've kind of already done that now anyway. I've planned all my house sits around my races for the next year. Um, but the dog walking, I wouldn't want to give it up, but I would definitely like to obviously earn an income from running. And even if it's more to go down I've said to Charlie, because obviously he's a videographer and he took a few of the drone clips the other day. Is it Jeff Pelletier? He does more documentary style YouTube, and he's still sponsored by Salomon, even though, I mean, I think he came second in one of the 200 milers in the States. So he's still a good runner by all means, but his sponsorship is definitely more to do with his social media presence. And because I've already got that from
Yeah.
my past life, um, and a lot of them are quite happy to hear now about my old audience, kind of happy to hear about this new like running journey I'm on. It's kind of transferable, and it's
Mm.
getting people into running. And there's so many people, especially females around me now, that are into running, and um, so there is that side. But I definitely, I don't want to be a running influencer as such. I'd rather just be a runner, and if the audience comes with it, and that's that. But there's such a pressure, isn't there, to get content when you're running, when you're just trying to run, and sometimes that can take the joy out of something away from me. When I've had this pressure to get photos and videos for years, now sometimes I just like to go out and run. But obviously, you know, if you want to make an income from it, might be like a bit of both. But yeah, I mean, I'm ride and die Hoka shoes, but I also wear all Salomon, and my equipment's mostly Salomon. At the end of the day, if either of those two offered me a paycheck, I'd be shaking their hand right now. Let's be real. Imagine being at one of the training camps, like Salomon ones, and like you're just chilling with Courtney. Do you know what I mean? You can't complain. But they are the kind of two brands for me that stand out that I personally wear and love. More 10, I know I've just landed their bicarb drink. Not a fan, but I they're the only gels that I can use, and they, you know, every time I have one, it's like you just know you're eating £4. It's a killer, absolute killer. I'm like, do I really need energy right now, or should I save this gel? They'd be a great sponsor as well, because I do like the carb drink as well. I'm trying to work out whether to. I was trying to work out the best nutrition plan. I've been different things. I definitely the gels by Morton. I can't go wrong with those. They're the only ones that for me I can tolerate after a long amount of time as well. But yeah, I won't be using the Bicarb system again. I don't think it's a bit too much of a roulette to see if that was actually what made me ill the other day or not.
With the Morton, is that I've not actually tried any of them. I've probably just thought that they looked at them and thought they're too expensive.
Yeah.
Right. Are they kind of like a neutral tasting gel? Are they?
It's it's still sweet, but very subtle. And for me, it's a texture thing, and it's almost like a solid. So I can kind of chew. It's like a jelly. You can just kind of get it in, and I find that the gels get in your pockets get very sticky when you put the packets in and stuff like that. Whereas these don't as well, because you kind of can get it all out, and it's almost, yeah.
Yeah.
I've just
I wonder if have you tried the precision hydration ones then? Have you tried them?
no.
That's so that what you're describing about the Mortons is how I would describe the precision hydration.
Okay.
They're almost like a jelly, and you don't like they don't like spill out everywhere when you open, and they're literally like
Okay.
you squeeze the whole lot in your mouth and then fold the they're like in a paper, almost like a paper wrapper, and you fold them up, and I've never had any trouble with them. Like it's because it's weird, isn't it, that you get so like sweaty and horrible and dirty in a race, don't
Then
you?
your hands are
But your hands
yeah,
are sticky.
sensory
Like the
thing.
worst thing, isn't it? Is to have
Yeah.
horrible sticky hands and you like
Especially if you're a bit on the spectrum, a bit neurodivergent like me. I just can't stand things like that, like sticky pockets, and it's just another thing that I don't want to have to deal with. For North Down Way, I didn't have a single gel. I didn't have any because I was like, I'm not having those awful things in my pocket that just, yeah. Whereas now at least I've found a way to get my carbs in, because I was just eating potatoes. That's how I did get my carbs in before, just eating potatoes. But now at least, yeah, I really do, I'm a slave now to those bloody expensive gels, but they really work for me, and I've tried a few, and I'm very, if I don't like something, I find it very hard to have. And with those, I thought that the taste was going to be almost like savory. I don't know why, because everyone said they're quite neutral, but it is still sweet. It's quite
Mm.
nice. I quite like it. Same for the carb drink, but for the carb drink, I don't really notice any different compared to other carb drinks. So I'm gonna save the money there and just keep the gels, because they are just like a league of their own. I do
Mm.
really, yeah, really rate those.
Maybe you ought to try the precision hydration ones then. Yeah, just
Yeah, because I had they're like Rice Krispie bars by Morten as well, and somebody did link me a kind of a dupe, much cheaper dupe of those as well.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I do need to, yeah, or just like I said, Morten, send me an email. Let's talk.
If they want to sponsor you. So
Yeah.
I the Hoka. Salomon or Morton, if you're listening to this podcast by a very
I
slim
mean,
chance,
Tailwind as well. I'm a big fan of Tailwind. Let's not leave them out.
it's basically anything for free.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm sure if you're gonna, in the future when you get the success that I think you quite rightly deserve that you haven't had yet, you've had some bad luck, haven't you? Basically, with stuff.
It's character building though, isn't it? And it shows
It-
determination and, yeah, it definitely
I
shows
suppose, yeah.
something.
I suppose if you'd won every race that you'd done, then what would you learn from that, other than
Exactly, yeah, and like Wiltshire Snowdonia was such a lesson of determination to even turn up on the start line to that the way I was, knowing that I was going to be disappointed because I knew, I wanted to win that race, and the training had gone well, and I was really confident, but then obviously I was so ill, and my HRV was totally in the red for 2 weeks on New Garmin. Do you track yours? And even on race day, my watch told me you need extra rest. I was like, oh, not gonna happen. So I just knew I was poorly, and straight away my heart rate was 190 first climb of Snowdon. I was like, oh God, this is not going well. And I didn't think I'd finish it, but somehow you do continue, don't you, in these events? Well, with the spine, that's just something that you just gotta keep moving forwards. And
Mm.
that was definitely the trend for Ultra Snowdonia. There was one section where I was almost cut off. It was 1 a.m. on the final night, but I think I had 1 minute to spare.
Wow.
And I found this kind of strength that I didn't even know I had to sprint out. Like you just find this beast in you. I just thought I haven't been going for, at that point, was that 30 hours to be cut off? I was like, no way. No way. They
So let the record show that you said the S word. So you mentioned the spine race. I didn't mention the spine race. You brought that up. The people that always tell me off for talking about the spine race. So with that, with that experience that you had at Ultra Trail Snowdonia, going through 2 days and 2 nights, and that's like perfect spine race training. So
yeah.
how would you feel about that race now? Is that sort of that kind of race?
Yeah,
On
I love the idea of that now, definitely. I just feel like you got to earn your stripes a bit. I want to get a few more 100 milers behind me before I shouldn't really have even done Ultra Snowdonia as such a progress. Like I was too naive. I didn't really understand. Matt did say to me at the time, do the 100K. And I was like, no. I was trying to compare it to North Down Way, but that race is like doing two back-to-back North Down Ways. It's not same as, it's not a regular 100 mile race, is it? Um, so yeah, no,
You could always do then. So what would be good for you to do then is do the summer spine races. So one of them. So you could do obviously it's broken up into it. So you can do
yeah,
sprint is like 46 or 47, something like that. Um, Challenger South 108, and that is a good route if that would be suited to you. So it's
yeah,
lots of climbing, but not like massive climbing like Snowdonia. And then the top section, so Challenger North, so 160. So that's got some brutal bits in it as well. But yeah,
yeah. I ran with a woman, and she had done, I think the North it was about 160 something
yeah,
mile race, and she said Ultra Snowdonia was hands down harder
yeah.
comparatively,
Mm. It
um,
would have been.
which which is, yeah, it
Yeah.
I had gone into that race very no, I hadn't even imagined I hadn't even been to a mountain yet. But you got to throw yourself in the deep end sometimes. And I put the work in. I went there and I trained, and I was humbled very fast. And then, that became my world. I was back and forth. The Isle of Wight to Wales is not that easy, but I was doing it like every other weekend to train to make sure that I was going to be capable to do the race. And yeah. But no, yeah, definitely the spine. The summer spine is more attractive to me. I always say I'd love for them to do a summer arc as well, because I think Cornish trails in the summer, that would
Mm.
be amazing with more daylight hours.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
suppose
yeah,
that race built its reputation on being like a really tough.
Tough weather. Yeah, but this one's quite calm, I think, in the last few years. It's not really stormy, is it? You usually get quite a nice sunny winter's day.
Yeah, yeah, I
But
suppose.
no, but yeah, no, definitely, I definitely like the look of the spine. The look of the women doing the spine this year. Wow, that's going to
Yeah,
be hard
so
one this
yeah,
year.
it's a real
I'm
lineup.
glad
This
I'm not doing it this year. That's for sure. But I think that's
gonna
just
be,
going to be the continuous trend, isn't it?
yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, when you think about like women's running this year, it's just been absolutely mind-boggling, hasn't it? You know, we're like Jasmine Paris starting out the year with Barkley, and then you've just had, Tara Dower doing the record, the FKT on the Appalachian Trail in America, like winning that outright, um, setting the record outright, beating the men's record and everything. Then you've got over here. Oh, I interviewed her a few weeks ago. She just
Sarah
won.
Perry.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
the
I
best
listened
one.
to that. I really like that. Because
Yeah,
funny
she's
enough,
great.
actually, I was at one of my clients' house the other day and there was a National Trust worker there. And the owner of the house had been telling the National Trust people about that I'd just run around the island and they're obviously outdoorsy people. And he said, oh, one you want to do is the South West Coastal Path. And he was like, oh, I was speaking to a woman. She was out doing that. And I was like, was she a smaller northern lass? So I was like, I think that's Sarah Perry. I've heard all about, I've listened to her and she was on your podcast and also I was on one, it's called She Trails. It's a
Yes, she
French,
does. Yeah.
yeah, and she was on that as well. So I'd listened all about her, attempt and stuff.
Yeah, she's great. She's a very reluctant podcast interviewee, so I think she's getting better. I think she's now realized that she's probably like almost not obliged to do podcasts, I don't know, but I think she was very wary of doing them and I really had to like sort of twist her arm. I'd been asking her for like over a year to come on the podcast and she was like she'd keep saying to me, when I do something worth talking about. And like she's so like humble. And then she went.
Unlike me, who's begging, like, please get me on. No, I'm joking. I didn't actually beg to be on this, but I am glad I'm on it.
Um, and then when she did the backyard, I was like, "Come on, please, you've got to come on and talk about that." And she was like, "Oh, okay," like sort of through gritted teeth. And then once you get her on, she's just like anybody else. She loves talking about running. So yeah, but
Yeah.
women's running, and I think this will, the winter spine this year will be kind of like the crowning moment for women's running this year. It's just like
Yeah,
go.
definitely. With one of the women running, she's doing Ultra Snowdonia. She won the Dragon's Back. Can't think what her name is right now. She's not on social media. Robin
Oh,
Cassidy,
Robin
yeah.
Cassidy. Yeah,
And
she's not.
that's
She is on social media. Yeah, she's on Instagram.
I think
Yeah.
but she's private. So I wasn't able to stalk her Strava or her page, but I saw she signed up for Ultra Snowdonia and I was like, oh God, because she won Lakeland last year. And I was like,
Yes.
oh shit, there's a strong lineup, obviously, for Snowdonia. I was like, oh God.
Yeah, it's good. All competition. That's what you want into to.
Yeah, yeah.
If you do well at something and you do well against other people, then it's just more proof into that you're doing okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Right. It's been awesome chatting to you again and catching up with you. And we'll have to not leave it so long. It's been over a year, so we'll have to have a
Yeah,
regular.
well, obviously there wasn't really much to talk about, was there? Couldn't really talk about my injury or I mean, I did get one podcast out of Ultra Snowdonia because it was just about, finishing it. That's what I said to Charlie afterwards. I was like, gutted, Sam won't have me back on now. I didn't do very well.
I would have. Yeah, I don't know when. It was probably when I was. When was that? May. I don't know who I was interviewing around then. Yeah, but I had noticed that you'd done it, and I knew that you'd had a tough time. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just it makes you more determined to do better, doesn't it?
yeah. One thing, a bit of a crazy story though about all this training and stuff. I do believe everything happens for a reason, and I haven't hadn't posted about it on my social media, but I went to an award ceremony with the police last week, so I did
All
post
that.
a couple of stories about it. Yeah, but had I not been training for for UTMB Mallorca, I wouldn't have saved that guy's life.
Mm.
So everything happened for a reason because I was only out that evening because I was training for the race. So although it didn't happen, now I saved a man's life and also I still got the fastest known time around the Isle of Wight. So it's not a total failure,
Yeah,
is it?
something's gonna
When there's these things happen, yeah.
happen. Well, just briefly tell that story then, if you what you can say about that story about what actually happened then.
Yeah, so I was just getting used to head torch training. So I wanted obviously Phoenix, thanks to you, had given me a head torch, and I was just getting used to running. I found the hardest time is dusk to get used to, the head torch and whatever. So I was just about to head out. It was about 8 o'clock on a Friday. It was just about to get dark, and I went along the Compton Cliffs to Freshwater. I don't know if you know where the stacks are.
Mm.
And that's shut at the moment because of coastal erosion. And you're meant to go up over a golf course instead, but I went down the shut bit because I know, it's safe. And as I get to the corner, far away from there's the freshwater bay, which is like the village and the beach where there's people. There was somebody stood on the edge of the cliff and they had one leg over, like about to step. And your brain just plays tricks on you, doesn't it? And I thought, oh, that's just a nipper messing around. But part of me was then also like fight and flight mode, and my heart started racing. I ran over and I was like, excuse me. And he looked round at me, and you just could just look through someone when they're like that. And he was covered in sick and he was just all red from crying. And then it went into this 3-hour negotiation, basically, for him not to jump. I managed to call the police because I sent Charlie, my partner, my location, and managed to get a few texts through to him to tell him what to do. Because I didn't want, I didn't want to stress the guy out. But I warned him. I said, look, if police come, it's because people have seen this is happening. It's not to do with me. Kind of to earn his trust and whatever. And when the police arrived, he was very hostile and stressed him out more. So he wouldn't let the drone come up. He wouldn't let any police come over. But he did let the police talk to me on the phone and then speak through me, basically. But this went on for 2 hours. And in the final hour, I was gone out in the shorts and a t-shirt, and it was quite a cold September evening. Obviously where I was running, you run hot, but it was really windy and cold and I was freezing. So eventually he let a policeman come over and give me a jacket. And then I had this police officer who was actually fantastic, join me for the last hour. But there was a couple of times where we really thought we were going to lose him. And
Wow.
it was horrific. Before the police arrived, I'd even said things like, I'd got to the edge myself and said, well, if you jump, I'm jumping with you. Just, you just got to say anything, because I truly believed this man was going to do it. And he hadn't left a note, and he didn't even have his phone on him or anything. And that, I know from my experience with things like this, that's the highest risk you can be if you don't even leave a note. He really was quite set on doing it, and he'd taken an overdose as well. So it was like multiple factors. But sort of gets even crazier. Like, eventually convinced him to come back away from the cliffs, and he got the help that he needed. He was sectioned, and yeah, that's kind of all after that, the police and the ambulance services reached out to me quite a bit, obviously, to check how I was, because it was 3 hours of quite a lot of trauma. I was fine during it, but afterwards it was just like, wow, I couldn't even process what had happened. And I didn't want to post it about it online or anything, because that's quite private and whatever. But then about a month later, this is the crazy bit of the story. I usually take Monday as a rest day. But this particular week I was going to Mallorca and we were flying on Thursday, and I thought, do you know what? I'll have Thursday as a rest day because it's a travel day. It makes sense. And I went for this run, and I was in this rural area. It's a road, but it kind of connects some trails. And this 4x4 kind of like slowed down. I thought, who's this? And I just carried on running, and it parked up and someone got out, and the man got out and said, hi Charlotte, do you remember me? And it was the man from the cliffs. And we were 20 kilometers away. Like, it wasn't like I was hanging out in the same areas. It was just complete coincidence. And he's not on social media or anything. And he did say, he just said, like, as he saw a runner, he thought, imagine that's Charlotte. And he'd always thought, will I see her ever again after, what we'd been through that night? And, we had a chat, and he still wasn't doing great. It's not one of those things where you're fixed overnight, is it? But he was about to go stay with he was in his 50s, this guy, but he was about to go stay with some family in Oxford and I think do some treatment. But it was so weird to see him, and the fact that we bumped into each other, such a rural place, on a day where I wouldn't normally be running. It just felt like fate. It was really weird. And again, that's all to do with the Mallorca race. So had that not happened, had I not been training for that, would he even be alive? Had I even, been a minute later that day, it's really crazy. But I won the award is, I'm not sure what the award's for actually, but it's basically for saving a man's life. Usually it's in your line of duty. So that's why it's me and loads of police at this award ceremony. But they said, in rare circumstances, it can be a member of the public that gets this award. So that's why I ended up getting it. And I hadn't posted about it on social media, but somebody from my running group was there, and took some pictures and posted it. So it was already kind of out in the open at that point. And I just thought, you know what, I'm kind of proud of it because probably the best thing I've done this year. You know, lucky I can talk for England, can't I? So I was able to just chat this man's ear off for 3 hours and literally convince him with everything I had in me that life's worth living. Because I do believe maybe 3 years ago I was more like his position, and I was out having a run and I just said, look, my life is so different. I'm a totally different person. I think I spoke to you before about like alcohol issues, but I'm over a year sober now as well. So that shows how long I haven't been on the podcast. But just like certain things like that, I was just able to really like convince this guy life is truly worth living. And just the fact that our paths crossed again, I think it just shows that we were originally meant to meet as well. It was originally meant to have been me that found him there that night.
Yeah, it seems like you were obviously the perfect person to be there at that point as well, weren't you, to give him that support.
Yeah.
Wow. That's yeah, I think that, basically the theme of your year and the theme of this podcast is like finding the positive in.
Yeah, which is really weird because the old me was so negative, and so the second something went wrong, I'd see the bad in everything. Whereas now it's my mindset's changed, and I do try and see the positives, and there is quite a few positives. A lot more people around me are more disappointed for me than I am this year. I think that's a lot to do with imposter syndrome as well, isn't it? People think well, I think people think I'm better than I am, but obviously they're just seeing kind of like how they think that I should be, and I just haven't had that opportunity yet to show myself. So yeah, I mean, hopefully now, but the next time I get to prove myself, I'll have even more training behind me, and eventually one of these races, hopefully, it will go right. And in the process, I am enjoying it,
Yeah,
and my new life basically.
yeah, yeah,
Who
that's it.
knew charity, like signing up for a charity event where I wasn't a runner at all, would literally change the whole trajectory of my entire life.
Yeah, yeah. So, running is saved your life in a
Yeah,
way, saved that guy's life as well, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Which is crazy to think, really. Like even imposter syndrome, even like I'm like, oh no, I didn't really save his life, but I'm like, no, you literally in this situation, the police
Yeah.
have literally told you you did. So I'm kind of like, okay, that is one thing I can be like, yeah, okay, I did actually do that because like I think he would have been definitely jumped.
Yeah.
Well, certainly had I not come along altogether, he would have. And then it was just touch and go over those 3 hours. About there was just one point with the policeman there, and we were making progress, and he just turned around. He went, "I'm really sorry, I've gone too far with this." And that was the police officer. I don't think he's allowed to touch. I don't think they're allowed to touch, or But obviously, I just went straight to the edge and was like, "No, you're not doing this. Like, please, anything." And was getting pictures up of. I knew he had two. I don't want to say too much, but he had two dogs. I'll just say. So I was getting pictures of two dogs that I could like kind of like just show him that might have resembled his dogs, or just try and get through to him in kind of any way. But yeah, I never imagined that day coming across something like that, and I had to pause my Strava. I was like, oh, won't be getting a won't be getting a course record here today.
No
But
Strava on that
yeah,
run.
yeah. And then I was like, oh, got to make my mileage up. No, I'm joking. It was one of those things where I made peace with it. I was like, wow. You just shell shocked after something like that. You just don't imagine that's going to be part of your day, do you?
No, no, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. He was obviously glad that you were there and amazing. Yeah. So it's that's the whole thing, isn't it? You're just trying to find, it's quite right, like you say, other people have probably been more gutted for you for your year. Like I feel like you've like not fulfilled your potential yet. Uh,
Yeah.
but you're just having a blast doing what you're doing, aren't you? So doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I genuinely have loved this year. So, and even I always say I loved every second of Ultra Trail Snowdonia, even in the suffering. That was one of the best weekends of my life. I just genuinely loved it. Like just 2 days out in the mountains and saw the Northern Lights and saw the best sunsets and sunrises ever. Yeah, things got a bit weird and obviously there's a lot of pain involved, but after that, I was in mourning. I was in loss, missing it. I guess you probably feel the same about the spine. Like it's definitely suffering, but once you're out of that, you just go back to real life. You're like, I don't know how to function.
Yeah. I can attest to that. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's been amazing having you on again, Charlotte. It's great to catch up with you and see what you're up to and everything. And I won't put too much pressure on you by saying, looking forward to seeing you win a race soon. So
I mean, a podium would be nice, I think, after all this effort. I mean,
it'll be nice. Put the
but
effort
I
in.
mean, Trans Gran Canaria is not any. That's, I mean, that race. That's not one that I'd go into expecting to podium. So let's think maybe like a bit further on in the year, hopefully. But Trans Gran Canaria just be an experience and again enjoyable. That's why I want to do that race. I love the trails there and just to be like brushing shoulders, I think, with the people running that race. I don't know if Courtney will run it again because she's just done it the last 2 years, but imagine being on the start line with her. That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It's the ultra running is the great equalizer, and you can be running with, you 1 minute you're sort of seeing somebody on social media or on TV, and then the next minute you stood on the start line with
I
them.
know I don't really get that starstruck, but when I was out on the trail waiting for Courtney to go by, I was like shaking. Charlie was so shy; he didn't even say like running strong or looking strong. He couldn't say anything. I was like, "What that Courtney looking strong?" And she's like, and Charlie just didn't say anything. I was like, "Why didn't you say anything?" Because we're the only ones on the trail, so we just look like weirdos. But you're just nervous, aren't you? Like, and again, like this is someone who's been on our telly when we're eating dinner, I put on like YouTube videos, and it is weird, isn't it? You see them in person. Um, it was nice to see Josh because he seemed more like
He's great.
relatable and like yeah, he was
Yeah.
so buzzing that we were like, well done, Josh, running strong. All the other people just looked like it'd been a really tough night to be fair, and they'd gone through a storm and they were just like looked like they'd been to war. And then Josh was just there like absolutely buzzing, and he was doing so well. He's ahead of Courtney. That's how we saw him because
Yeah.
he was like, I was obviously
Well,
going out to see her and didn't know too much about Josh at this point. Obviously, I did go on to learn loads about him because I did all the research about ultra trail Snowdonias and down that rabbit hole and messaged him a bit about it and stuff like that. But
he's a great guy, and
yeah,
he's
oh, seeing
put
him
his
in that race, I was like, right, I'm gonna keep an eye on this guy because he's a good spirit. You can tell someone's a
yes,
kind
yeah,
person, a good
yeah,
spirit.
yeah.
Not that the other athletes weren't, but he just had
Uh,
something about him.
he is.
Yeah.
He's great. He's great to interview as well. He's like really, really down to earth, but really funny as well.
Yeah, I
So
listened to his ones that you've done, and you did one recently, didn't you, after UTMB? It was great to hear. And do you know what? That kept me going. When I was doing the FKT, I really wanted to quit. Like I said, for the first 30K, I had such a bad belly, and I'm talking worst I've ever dealt with running and being sick. And I just thought, Josh had his bad guts, as he was saying,
yes,
and he still managed to turn it around. And
yeah,
I was like, I can turn it around. I've just got to just it can't go on forever, can it? You just got to keep your head down and keep going. And it was right. And I had this girl came to join because I'd put my Garmin tracking up and I didn't really know. I didn't have any people saying they were going to come out and pace me, but I just said, look, if anyone wants to join me, this is my route. This is the rough times I'll be there. It'd be great to see any of you. And I was actually blown away by the amount of people that did come out and help. And after I did this really rough section for about 3 hours, I was about 35K in. I met Charlie to change my shoes, and he's like, "There's a girl here to run with you," and I was like, "What?" And then I was thinking in my head, maybe I could quit here because I was suffering so much. But just seeing her and running with her for a bit, it just yeah, it after that I kind of perked up, and it did really help.
yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so it's amazing that the running community will sort of rally round, won't it, for a kindred spirit.
Oh, I was truly blown away. It's the Dark Star running group that I've been part of. It's not like an affiliated group, and I think it's just more just like people meet up, but them posting about it and then coming out and running sections with me, and honestly, it blew it. By the end, I was emotional from the support. I think at the very end, I had about 5 people with me, and I thought I was going to be Billy No Mates the whole way around, suffering. That's because obviously the first few hours and I was suffering a lot, and I just thought I've got a whole day of this, like I've got a whole day of this to come, and it's just going to be a struggle. But actually, after that, people came out because obviously I started quite early in the morning, so no one was joining me that early. People kind of it's their weekend, isn't it? But everyone's support just made that day, just turned it around for me. I loved it.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's awesome. Right, I shall leave you and Randy to it.
Yeah, he's just come to say hello again. Another reason, like I wouldn't have him if it wasn't for my Welsh races as well, because I picked him up nearby.
There you go. Everything happens for a reason. I
It
think
does.
that'll be the title of this episode.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Charlotte. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch up again after what's your next race? Transgran Canaria.
Transgran Canaria.
Catch up after that, and hopefully you can tell me how successful it was, regardless of position. We'll talk about it. So
Yeah.
cheers for coming on. Appreciate
Yeah,
your time.
thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you.